Let's talk to Nick in Massachusetts. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Nick.
Hello. So I wanted to talk about consequentialism of mechanistically definable truths.
Okay. Yeah. So walk us through that a little bit. Hit us with some definitions just so that we're all starting off on the same clean table.
Okay. So, there's, every statement, everything that can be said, anything that can be communicated through language has that aspect of it's true that you can say it's true. So everything has some element of truth in that scope but that's the scope that we're talking about.
You mean truth by definition, a foot is 12 inches long because we define the word foot to mean something that contains 12 inches. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And basically every single statement imaginable, composable has that property. But then I guess if we go further into what's the next sort of truth paradigm that we're concerned with, I would say that our main truth paradigm that we're concerned with is mechanistic statements that can be mechanistically verified and proven to you might have you'll grab a statement, and if you're reaching into a black box, you don't know what statement you're going to pull out, so you don't know if you're going to be able to generate a mechanistically possible representation of that, that idea, the claim, the sentence, whatever you want to call it, the information. And so that mechanistically, consistently, reliably, mechanistically coherent representation of the information is the type of truth that we're concerned with, and especially when it comes to conversations about God or supernatural things. We want to be able to have a mechanistic, grounded representation of that information, so that we can
try to put it in order for me. What does this look like on the ground? What is a important statement that you're trying to apply these ideas to? Because I'm still having a little bit of trouble following or wrapping my head around some of these ideas.
So is it the position of a secular government to be so there's Christianity. It believes in the resurrection of a human being called Jesus Christ, and that this was a one-time event, and that this person atomically reassembled, and their heat signature came back. That's a mechanistically impossible statement. So I made the state, I said the words, but it's not there's no mechanistic reality that into the future, that you're not in the same reality anymore if you're suddenly in a reality where that can happen.
Sure. Okay. So when feet have 11 inches,
resurrection is
yeah. Scott, are you able to parse any of this out or help me see where we're going?
I'm having a little difficulty following, Nick, but let me ask you a couple of questions that might clarify what we're talking about here. First of all, what is it that you mean by truth or true? Because there are a variety of ways that people use that term. And, if we're talking about the importance of it being the concepts that are being conveyed, I suppose we need to, put our money where our mouth is and ask you what you mean by those terms. But my second question would be then, are you distinguishing between something being true and something being humans being able to demonstrate that something is true? I mean, because those are two different things, although obviously they're related to each other. I'm not really sure where the mechanistical aspect of it is coming in. Are you distinguishing between truth and demonstrability?
So like it's you can like so you can like codify into epistemology that it'd be impossible for the sun to like suddenly slam onto the surface of the earth in less than like a second, or like less than a tenth of a second. I don't know what breaks like physics, or how many seconds is like under how many seconds is what constitutes breaking physics. But basically like that, you can operate under that assumption. Like you can operate under that epistemological assumption that like that will not happen because it's mechanistically impossible. So like the truth we're talking about here is like it's possible to happen in reality. Like so, or it's not possible rather. Like
so are you saying that I mean, if you think of like Gödel's incompleteness theorem, if you think of like Gödel's incompleteness theorem, one of the implications of that is that in any kind of language that's used to describe reality, there are going to be truths that cannot be determined to be true, and there will also be statements that are false, even though they can be proven to be true using that language. And I think the point there was that languages that we use to describe reality can be deficient in fully characterizing that reality. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think what you just said, that from my understanding of what you just said, I think you said that like language doesn't really have a built-in mechanism to like establish some sort of like mechanistic a priori clarification of like possibility. I mean, I think
so. What's your end game then here? If that's kind of what you're saying, if there is going to be some kind of disconnect between the language of truth and the actual values of truth, so where does this lead you? I mean, so let's say that we kind of came to some kind of conclusion on that. Therefore, what?
So like I operate under I grant freedom of religion, right? But I don't grant the possibility, like I'm granting the person the freedom to operate, I'm not interfering with their right to operate under false pretenses, but I'm like not opening it up for a possibility that it's possible to resurrect by yourself in some cave when you're clinically dead for 3 days and you already started rotting. Like it's not going to happen. So like I'm going to operate under the assumption that like my government doesn't recognize that as mechanistically possible or like a viable
when I'm boiling it all down, Nick, I'm hearing that like fake things are fake and real things are real. I want to let you know I'm on board with going on this journey with you. I am down to do the syllogisms and to throw out all of the big philosophy words, and we can talk about consequentialism and morality and epistemology and some of these terms that you're throwing our way. But I don't know that you're putting them together in a way that makes any organized sense. I don't want my failure to understand what you're saying to be a form of dismissing everything that you're saying. But we've been after this for a good few minutes. And I got to tell you, I think Scott and I are both really scratching our head. I think a lot of our audience is scratching their head. And I'd really invite you to take what it is that you are attempting to say and see if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old and see if you can't break it down a little bit further to make sure that you're clear on what it is you're trying to say. I'm sorry if any of that feels disrespectful or defaming, but I think that your thesis here is a little bit undercooked. Is that okay?
I mean, I don't know if it's fully undercooked, but I get what you're saying. My whole thing is that there's like if we're gonna ground like conversation in or anything, you know, society, call-in shows, town halls, like podcasts, or, you know, like even comedy, or like, you know, Congress or Costco or wherever you're at.
Communication is what you're getting at. Like everything that you're describing, you're saying if we're going to ground our communication in something, that something should be what?
Well, it's not really like communication. It's more like the social contract itself, right? Like as some sort of like
culture, society.
Like we yeah, like that, like that's kind of like the tying thread to anything, including communication. But it's just like that's kind of like where I'm at with how religion like affects my outward position into like, you know, the like, because for my day-to-day experience, people aren't like walking around like reciting their epistemology or, you know, their like what their reality is grounded on. But I kind of like expect that my government doesn't really operate in that loose sense, and that like it's doing like it's having some sort of due diligence in not really like going back and reconsidering things that have already been like mechanistically discounted. If that makes sense. So like
saying data-driven government is something that I think we can all sort of co-sign. That is certainly a world that I aspire to, even if, as I become increasingly frustrated about our capacity to provide for that right now. But beyond that, Nick, I don't know that we're getting any closer to a mutual understanding. And I'd love to invite you to spend some time with these ideas, maybe bounce them back and forth with ChatGPT until you feel like you have something that's a little bit more clean and ready to present. And when you're ready, give us a call back, bring your A game, as we like to say, because I'd love to better understand what it is that you're talking about. But now, over 10 minutes into it, I'm even less certain I understand what you're saying than I did when we very first began. So respectfully, please work on it a little bit. Give us another try, and we'd love to better understand what it is you're looking to express.
So, okay, last time question. Is there a way, like, do you think it's appropriate for a government to take like positions that actively are counter to religious like beliefs? Like, so
I mean, appropriate is a very complicated term that covers all manner of sins. You know, if you are existing under a religious law, then is it appropriate for the government to support religious ideas? I guess. Does it make it beneficial? Does it make it useful? Does it make it desirable? Absolutely not. I do wish that our government in particular here in Texas, here in the United States, was more data driven, was less interested in tradition, was less interested in the religion that we don't necessarily officially endorse, but increasingly we're pretty comfortable with endorsing it. All of that is very concerning to me. But I don't really know how to answer your question any further than that. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to need to leave it there so that we can open up the calls to, or the lines to some other calls. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel you. Like when we bring it to like government context, it's like democracy seems to change what it thinks it can vote on with respect to other people's rights. So it's just like it's always putting itself in danger and in peril because it's like there's powers that want to make less freedom or democracy or whatever we're.
Well, Nick, maybe we can leave you with this idea here. It's clear that you're struggling to clarify and explain something that you feel is important in your mind, and in a way, I'm envious of you because you have a wonderful puzzle in front of you to kind of put together. I would recommend Christie's advice and think of it. Try to explain it like you were explaining it to a 5-year-old. Teachers say the best way to learn something is to try to teach it. And it really forces you to look at something in a particular way. What's important? What are the connections and relationships that are important? What are the facts and the quantities that are important, and that kind of thing. And so I think if you did something like that, try to break down what you're trying to say as if you were talking to a 5-year-old. And then from there you can add sophistication and nuance and that kind of thing, and then build it up to something a little bit stronger. But yeah, I was having difficulty following you there, and it's not necessarily your fault. It's this is a great example here. Clearly you have a passion about this subject and you're struggling with the logic of it. And so you need to find that appropriate balance. And so I wish you luck with that. And I look forward to talking to you at a future time if and when you're able to kind of solidify it a little bit more and come up with something a little bit more concrete.
Yeah, definitely do hope to hear from Nick again, because I think he was pressing on some pretty interesting sociological big
Definitely.
topics. But what those topics were, I couldn't really say. I won't say it, but there was somebody in the chat who compared it to Vogon poetry, and I thought that was just brilliant. So thank you for that.